Hello, today I'm going to be modelling a kilner jar and some pasta to fill it with, so that should be fun. And I think it'll probably be a three-part series because there's quite a lot to get through. So let's get on with it, making a kilner jar. Now I've made a kilner jar before and I filled it with spaghetti, and I've got to admit I think that looks pretty fantastic. So I made that by creating a cylinder, extruding the vertices upwards or downwards, scaling them, and repeating that operation until we got a jar. But in this one I'm going to try a different approach. I'm going to draw a profile of the jar and then use a screw modifier to whiz it around the axis and create the jar shape. So I hope that works out, and let's get on with it. This is the default opening scene in Blender, so we get rid of all the default rubbish. Now I need to bring in a reference image. And by the way, you need to make sure you're in front orthographic view before you bring in the image. So that's 1 on the numpad. So that's Shift A for the add menu, and scroll down, there's image. There's two types, there's reference image and background image. They are different, but it's quite a subtle difference. We don't need to bother about it for this one. Either one will work fine. So I'll choose reference, and then I'll find the photo that I did. And there's the image, and you'll see that it's a little bit off center, so I'm going to move it, GX, and try and get the center of the jar aligned with the origin point there, which is the red and white dotted circle. So I need to draw a curve around the edge of half of the jar. Shift A, add curve. I'm going to use a Bezier curve because they are easier to control and you can't see it. So let's have a look on the top view, 7 on the numpad, and there's the curve, and you'll see it's well, it's a little bit bendy. Go to edit mode, G to move those. So we'll go back in the front view and you can see the line there. Go to edit mode and move the whole thing so that the end point is aligned vertically with the origin. And we need to add more points, and you do that by hitting E for extrude, which is a bit weird. And also, what's happened there? I've got some kind of infinite loop going on. Oh dear. Let's get rid of that. Okay, G, then extrude another curve. Right, and then I'm going to deal with this central segment, which needs to be a straight line. So we select the two vertices at the end of that segment, and we change the handle type to vector, which makes it a sharp handle, not a smooth one, also known as a cusp in some software. Okay, so now we can deal with this rogue bit of curve by moving its control handles. Oh god. Right, I need to change these two to vector nodes as well. This is a bit rubbish, this. So you can see as I move that, the line at the bottom is staying straight. Right, let's move this one up there. Let's extrude, add a few more. I'll make all of those vector control points. That might not have been the cleverest thing to do, so because now this is a straight line, I want it to be a curve. So I'll select the control points at the end of that segment and set spline type to Bezier again. And now I should be able to move that control and it's become a curve again. Right, now I'm at the top of the jar, and all the stuff above it from there on is the lid. So that's a separate element. So I just want to tidy up this one, this final control point. We're in object mode. Let's look at the whole thing. And what I need to do now is add a modifier. and we want screw. Are you ready? Well, that's fantastic. It's completely wrong, but wow, that's interesting. I wonder why. Okay, I figured it out. I bet you spotted it before. This little dot down here, that is the origin around which the rotation takes place. So I need to move that to be in the center of the jar. So I'll right click on the curve and we've got set origin, origin to 3D cursor. Okay, you see it's moved to the middle of that red and white circle. And now if we add that modifier, it should work. Ta-da! Fantastic. So it's quite obviously faceted, and we want to make those more facets. So I'll make it I don't know, 42, the answer to everything, and that's a nice smooth curve. And I'll add a solidify modifier to give it some thickness, because it's going to be transparent. You'll be able to see the inside wall of it, so we'd better make sure it's there. So solidify thicker, I'll make it 0.03. Yeah, you can see with the solidify we've also got all this wiggliness on the inside, which doesn't exist in the real thing. I'm going to live with that for now, because that would take an awful long time to select the inner vertices without getting the outer vertices as well, so sorry about that. Now I'm going to model the lid, so I need to get the background image back, Alt H. Okay, so there it is, and let's add a Bezier curve. There it is, and then on the top we'll straighten this. Let's make all the handles vector, so that's straightened the curve. Now we can move it so that the end control point is in the middle of the lid at the top. Okay, right, let's move that one to the corner and then add some more by gum. And I can actually just kind of bring this up, and one more, I'm going to bring it across, so that's the inside of the glass lid taken care of. And now we'll add a screw modifier to that as well. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to model that rubber seal, so I'll just hide the jar itself and we'll go into top view. Oh, I'll just change the number of the sides on my lid, because that was too faceted. So 42. There we go. Now I need to make the rubber seal, and I thought initially the way to do this would be just to create a tube with a thick wall and a very shallow height. But it turns out in Blender there is no such primitive as a tube, amazingly. So then I thought, well, I could do it with a cylinder and then duplicate the cylinder, scale it down, stretch it up, and do a Boolean operation to cut the middle out. But then I thought, actually, I've used the screw modifier, it's very clever. I could just rotate a rectangle around the axis and that will give me the seal shape that I want. Need to be in top view, and I want to add a plane. And we'll scale that down. I'll move it out the way of the lid mesh. Let's look at it at the side, because it needs to be smaller. So we'll scale it again. Shift it over there, G. All right, that'll do. Now I need to kind of flatten it, S, Y, and rotate it 90 degrees, R, 90. Then I'll give it that sort of tapered shape by just moving the outer vertices. So G, Z. All right. I'll move the whole thing into position. Okay, and screw it. 7. Yeah, just make sure that your origin is in the center of the lid. Set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, now an add modifier, screw. And what happened? Okay, it's on the wrong axis. So let's change, let's try the y-axis, and that is correct. Obviously we need 42 sides. That's it. Beautiful. Now, materials. Now, I'm not a Blender expert by any means. I'm still very much a learner. So hopefully you can put up with me, you know, just basically learning as I go. And I'll make mistakes, and I'll show you them, so you can learn from my mistakes, so you don't have to make them. There's one thing that really I need to spend a lot more time learning, and that is creating materials, because it's so complex. There's so much stuff you can do with materials and shaders and so on. So the glass material for this jar, I borrowed it from somewhere else, and it looks pretty good, I think. So I'll select my jar, and I've got this material called jar glass. Ta-da! And I'll apply that to the lid also. And then if we look at the material preview, there it is. So it looks a bit weird at the moment because we haven't got an environment to reflect properly. We've just got the sort of default HDRI image. But if we look at the shader, or the shading window, this is what it is. It starts off with light path, ray depth, and that goes into a maths node, and it will affect anything greater than the threshold of 10. I have no idea what any of that means, and the value of that goes into a mix shader into the factor slot. Then we've got a glass BSDF. One of these days I'll find out what BSDF stands for and amaze you with it. Its color is pure white, roughness 0, IOR index of refraction 1.45. That goes into one of the shader slots, and the other one is a transparent BSDF, color pure white. That goes into the other shader slot, and then the output from that goes into the material surface. Okay, so that's all it is. The other one we want is a rubber for the seal, and actually I can build that myself, so I'll just hide the glass items. So we've just got the seal on its own. We'll have a new material, we'll call it rubber seal. Base color we will have a grey. Yum. Subsurface scattering, let's try 0.2, because the rubber is slightly translucent. Specular, well, maybe just 0.1. Roughness 0.1. Transmission, that's how much light is transmitted through it. So if I made that like 1, that would make it transparent. That's how you do a transparent glass kind of thing. It's very slightly translucent. So I think if I make it 0.2, that's kind of weird on the underside. I think we'll shade smooth. If I make it shade smooth, it turns it into like a donut. It makes all the edges are rounded. So shade auto smooth should preserve those a bit if I get the angle right. That's pretty much okay. There is our partially completed Kilner jar. In the next video I'll be making the wire bits, and well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.